My name is Tony King and I'm a photographer. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, subscribe to find a lot of photography content. If you're not new here, welcome back. If you know anything about the most common type of video I post, it's called a photo album. It's a montage of pictures I take when I go out on a photo walk. And I just select the pictures I like and color grade them and post them. Like, it's kind of the antithesis to curation. And I've already made a video talking about why I think quantity is more important than quality as a photographer, in a way to be able to expand your horizons and learn more rather than focusing on getting like one big banger. Recently, I haven't changed my mind on that, but I have updated my website, which is just one of the free Adobe websites, tonyeking.myportfolio.com. Please check it out if you want to see my curated selection of work. Probably put way too much on there, but I kind of made a bunch of little sections that each have 10 to 12 images in them. Hopefully it's not too many, but I also have on the homepage my portfolio, so you can check out what I think are my 12 best or portfolio worthy images. I wanted to make a video about printing images because for the last 3 years I have printed 100 photos per year. It's not actually necessarily true because this is my third full year, so I haven't done that, but I did print 100 pictures from my honeymoon, which is crazy. So I do have 3 physical photo albums, even though what I normally do are digital photo albums. 1, 2, 3. 3. There we go. So as of recording this, I have posted 190 photo albums. In those photo albums, there are 12,522 pictures. I know, it's crazy. Not all of them. Like, the idea of a photo album is to tell the entire story of a photo walk. So it's not just picking the 1 best, the 2 best, the 3 best. It's taking the photos that I like enough and that, show what I saw, where I saw it. The average photo album has 65 images in it, which is, a pretty high amount of pictures to have in, one photo walk, right? None of those images are printed. I wish I could print so many images. I wouldn't print 12,522 images. They're not all print worthy at all, but my portfolio, I don't have almost all of those I don't have printed. On my website, I have about like 150 images. Most of them aren't printed. Here in the back, you can see I have this one properly printed and framed because it was an exhibited work and I just picked it up and have nowhere else to put it, but I thought it was kind of cool to show it off here. I've exhibited another work and I've gotten some higher quality prints at Michael's. They're not really that high quality, but they're better than what you can get at Walgreens, which is actually what I printed all these images on, and there's a reason to that. And let's get into it. So these 3 photo albums, physical photo albums, each hold 100 images and they go by year. So this is from the first year of photography that I started taking pictures. I got this little album for like $5 on Amazon and printing these images at Walgreens. Admittedly, not the highest quality. Some of the colors are a little darker than, they're supposed to be. Basically like $40. What this really does, this forced me to start curating my work. Taking all the work and sharing it is great, but at some point you gotta start really curating it and telling a story. And trying to sequence images, like here I have the first shot of pelicans and then a second shot of pelicans. Admittedly, this is one of the best shots I've ever taken, and it's of pelicans. It's on my portfolio as well. And trying to sequence these together in the moments and the stories that happen, I had to go through all these hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, I've done 12,000, but all these thousands of images that I've taken in a year and shared, and decide 100, just 100 of which ones I'm going to actually print and immortalize in a photo album that, my dream is that one day, 10 years down the line, I can look back at this and think, wow, that was my first year of photography. Let's see how I was feeling through those photos. Let's see what I got. I can see if I've improved since then. I hope so. And I can, go back and reminisce. I think this physical form of photography is so nice to just actually sit there and look at it deliberately. When you're scrolling through your images on a phone, on a computer, it can start getting so quick and fast and you don't really have the time to physically feel it. I love physical prints. I wish I could afford to print a lot more of my work. I have some in my hallway and around my house, but most of that is not super high quality prints because I just can't afford it. One day down the line, maybe I'll start selling my prints online, high quality. Of course, I wouldn't, show you out for that. If there's an interest for some of that work, let me know. I'm not sure if I've generated enough interest for something like that just yet. Really happy with a lot of my work, and I can look through here and I know exactly this was from our Christmas trip to Key Largo, and it was a moment in time for sure. And then I went to Charlottesville to visit family, and they opened a food truck. Super nice. If you're in the Charlottesville area, check out Maresca's coffee food truck. Very, very good. And I went to Washington, D.C., and I got to visit one of my friends. I got this very cool portrait of him and, of my buddies there. And that same year I went to San Francisco for a bachelor party, got a lot of images there. And I was really just kind of finding my feet. If I go back, like there's a lot of pictures from home of my cat growing up. It's so surreal to see how much bigger she's gotten, how much fluffier she's gotten. There's a whole sequence of images that I tried to put together just of my cat Bootsy. And in my old apartment where I used to live, I starting to experiment with macro photography. I made a video going through all my lenses, and in here I can start seeing I got a new lens, and I started to get new types of images here with this lens. And so this is kind of an invaluable look back for me on my first year of photography. And selecting these images, I'm selecting the ones that have something to say about that. This image over here, I really like how I captured the shadow and the shapes, and I think this was kind of the start of something that I continued to develop in my work. This here has really nice shapes of the broken wood planks. I have this photo printed larger in my hallway. My wife is a big fan of it. And some of the concepts that I was learning live in these images, and curating these images for a photo album like this, there's a story behind it. There's a meaning, there's a memory, there's a technical aspect to it that I'm trying to achieve. I think I'm always going to cherish these 100 images. And I think it's a super cheap thing to do. $45 for a year. Come on, you can do that. 100 images. Go through your work. Maybe you didn't take 100 images. Maybe you can find one for 50, maybe for 65, 75, something like that. But I think this is super valuable and is definitely one step in the direction towards what I started doing on my website, which is trying to find the images that on a technical aspect really represent the style that I'm going for these days, which has bright lights, has hopefully interesting shapes, shadows, lots of contrast, and subjects that don't necessarily need to be people in order to tell something that's compelling. Moving on, this is actually the first photo album that I printed out 100 images of, and it's from my honeymoon. I wanted to immortalize my honeymoon. I took a lot of images there that I liked, and it was just a wonderful experience with my wife to travel. We were fortunate enough to travel to Spain and then back to my home city of Venice, Italy. And I got a lot of images there, and part of curating these 100 images is not only what is a good image, it's what, balancing, we spent kind of, I think it was like 7 days in Spain and 5 days in Venice, something like that. So managing that, but also including, how many images am I going to include that aren't like, hey, you are a photographer and this is your technical image that you want to put on your portfolio. How many of them are, this is a memory of my wife. This is a memory of me. I had to include images of me, which, is kind of, for me, I don't really like pictures of myself that much, but my wife did take actually my favorite picture of myself that I have on that trip, and it's in here. These are the kind of things that I think will transcend me as like looking back at my technical side of things and the life that I was living. This hopefully transcends to one day having kids, and they get old enough to like, hey, dad, mom, what did you guys do on your honeymoon? Well, check out, like, here's a narrative story based off photos that I took of like where we went. We had a little Airbnb and we're staying in the city in Tenerife. We went on a hike up the mountain the next day. It was beautiful. And I've got these really nice portraits of my wife that day, including this one over here, which to me encapsulates the whole kind of purpose of a photo album like this. It's a perfect memory, and we were in this very unique location on the mountain, and I captured this image, and when I look at it, I can hear her laughing. I can remember being there. I can sense her personality, her sense of adventure, her joy. And to me, this is my favorite picture I've ever taken of all time. Of course, it's biased, but technically speaking, I do think it's a very nice portrait of her as well. And it's just one of those images that I think will live on forever. And what better way to also make it live on forever than to, print it out and put it in a photo album. And, the story continues. We explored the islands of the Canary Islands, and you can see my wife laughing and looking around. And at some point in here, I'm in there. Yeah, see, so, see her laughing and me. I like that picture of me. It reminds me of my father, looking for things on the coast, sunsets. And I can imagine sitting with my kids and going back through the story of like how we explored these kinds of things. This is such a invaluable way to share a life experience. If you're a photographer, if you have images that you don't want to just scroll through on your phone. And then we go to Venice, and this is where I'm from, and I was very excited to photograph there. And at this point, I'd really only been doing it for about a year, but I'd kind of stopped doing it for a while. I guess I didn't feel motivated through the summer, and I'd gone a fair bit of time without actually taking many images by the time we got to our honeymoon. So I don't think I did as good as I will do the next time I'm there later this year. This image here is in here, which is one of my favorite, probably my second favorite image of all time, which is the one that I also have back here that was exhibited of these men standing on a bridge. And it works well together with some of the other black and white images I was able to get there. And you can really track my progress here as well. There's me laughing, which I don't really do very often. And I think that's kind of the whole point of myself as a photographer. What do you see? What do I see? And capture it in an honest way. And that's my honeymoon photo album. At the start of this year, I thought the last year that I made a lot of strides in progress, and I wanted to go back to let me, take some images from everywhere that I went and really put together something that goes to show my style, my abilities, and how I've improved, and also document the experience. Because some of the images in the honeymoon album, there's some redundant images that, if I'm really curating a selection, I'm not going to include twice, but this is more of a memory type thing. If I'm, trying to do something that, hey, if somebody finds this, dusty 50 years down the line or 70 years, 100 years down the line, they'll say, this guy photographed in this way, and this is where he went. That is what I want to do. And that's kind of what the point of curation is. That's what I want my website to be to a certain extent. My portfolio is kind of a comprehensive look. And then I have different collections for Atlanta, for Venice, for portraits, for black and white, for unit stills, for live music, for whatever it is that I photographed. Tried to photograph pretty much every sort of type of thing, wildlife. The only thing I'm missing really is sports, I feel like. But now you can look, I have a small selection from all these little categories, and because I'm not niched up, but that is still curation and figuring out. Maybe you look at a couple of those collections and you see, this style goes from this style. And so I would encourage anybody watching this video to really try and nail down 100 images, nail down 50, nail down 10 for a specific style, for a specific type of subject, whether it's wildlife, whether it's architecture, whether it's portraits, and put something together that 50, 70, 100, 200 years down the line, somebody could look at and say, this is what they were going for, and this is where they were at. I think that's the whole point of this. Last year, I went to Chicago to visit some friends, and at this point, I'd also not taken a lot of images for a while. I was pleasantly satisfied with a lot of what I got. Some of these black and white images turn out really dark when I print from, and this might have been CVS, not Walgreens, but one of the two, it's cheap and that's what I can afford. It's still priceless to have this physically. Maybe one day I'll be able to afford a nicer print, but I like this size. It fits in the hand. It's big enough to see. It's bigger than what you see on your phone, and you don't need to blast it, on the wall for every image. I'd like to print some of my images larger, not for this purpose, but the friends I visited in Chicago, and we went to DC for a little bit and we saw some friends there. There's the house I grew up in. We moved out of it. Well, I'd moved out of it a while before, but my mom moved out of it, and it's kind of bittersweet, somber, but I got some pictures out of there. I went to visit some family in Arizona, and then my life here in Atlanta with my family. it really started to get into some variety. It got macro shot of a bug, got my sister, my wife, and different ideas that you get with these images. My wife really likes this image, and I do too as well, of this red like wheelbarrow in the grass, kind of through all these objects. This goes to show that my style, that I am trying to get things in kind of that stick out in a mess sometimes. It's not always just like a blown out sky in one single image. That same style can translate to different things. And I think that's what I would also want somebody to understand from looking through my curated work. I'm not satisfied with all these images. There was the hurricane last year, and there's some damage here in Atlanta, and I tried to capture it. I should have gone out sooner if I really wanted to get something that really had to do with the disaster, but I didn't want to be in a disaster myself, I suppose. So I think that was wise for me to do. But a lot of photos of Atlanta, and sequencing images again. This image of a bee is in my wildlife portfolio, or maybe in my nature, I don't know. It's in one of them, because it is granted a very nice image, and putting it next to a picture of my wife smelling a sunflower. They work together because they're both from the same place. Sunflowers, it's the fall, and I think the picture of my wife here isn't good enough to make a curation, like a very specific one. But putting it in this sort of context, the memory doesn't die. And you can see side by side kind of a memory and the technical achievement that I made with that other image. Experimenting with long exposures and photographing people in different places, different parks in Atlanta we'd like to go to, and some wildlife and different locations, black and white, color. They were mixed together. For our anniversary, we went back to the town where we got married in northern Georgia. Got some fun pictures there. These two pictures would never make it into, I don't think they even made it into a photo album. But, having pizza on the hotel bed, these pictures would never make it out. But do I want my kids to see it? Yeah, see how we celebrated our first year of marriage, and like going around an orchard. And I think this trip was like, some of the images I got was like, it was surreal in a way that this is a perfect memory. This is kind of the climax of building up a passion, and in tandem with a year of figuring out married life and being in love and everything all together. Like, these things have such a big value to me, and I think if you really look at your images and love photography, you're gonna find so many images for yourself that are like that. And there's the technical prowess as well. And I shot a project at Wrightsville Beach called Isolato is what I called it, which is like isolated. And you can find that on my website as well, the full collection. This has some extra work in there as well. Yeah, and that was how I closed out the year, more or less. And so here in this album, I live in Atlanta, but I also went on trips. So pictures I took in Atlanta, it's not all chronological. It's kind of based off like location. So that's an element to it. And admittedly, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what I was going to start talking about when I made this video. I was like, you know what? I really like having these physical photo albums. And I think it is really the antithesis to what I normally do, which is just post any image that I think is good. And I think that is a very good thing to do. I stand by that. I made a video talking about it, and I do stand by it. But at some point, you have to have both. And I think this is the first step for me to curating my work that culminated into now having made a website, which I will link below. Please do check it out. I would appreciate any feedback on it, and check out the collections. And I'll go ahead and put it out there. If you want prints, DM me on Instagram at Tony King Pics, and we'll make it happen. I'd love to get into the prints field. With that, I just want to hope that this video is an encouragement to, don't just scroll through the images on your phone. Print out 100. These little books are like $5-6 on Amazon. Like I said earlier, you can find really cheap ways to print your images. Maybe there's no CVS or Walgreens, but some sort of other pharmacy, Walmart, whatever, that will print your 4x6 images, and you just, make sure they're all set to fit. You can fit 100 in there. You can find smaller, find bigger, I don't know, but really immortalize your images in a way that's not just digitally. And one day you'll look through these and really feel something about your photography, about your family, about the places you went. And that is an invaluable aspect of art that don't discount that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Very different. If If you want to see the stuff I normally do, the photo albums, but also do gear reviews and general like photography ideas and concepts that I like to talk about, I've made plenty of videos like that. So subscribe to the channel to check out some of that stuff, and more videos are going to be coming out as well. I've been Tony King. Hope this wasn't a waste of your time. Subscribe to the channel and I'll see you next time. That's what I'm trying to say. All right.